This Snazzy Tapir production is made possible by our patrons. If you'd like to join them, head over to patreon.com/snazzytapir to get member shoutouts, ad-free early access to new episodes, access to the members-only Discord, and our exclusive monthly newsletter. Thank you to Snazzy supporters Matt, Mike Barnes, and Ollie of the Beholder for keeping the show on the road. Now, on with the podcast. Welcome back to A Game of One's Own, a podcast all about solo and duet role-playing games. I'm your host, Maddie Searle, my pronouns are they, them, and today my wonderful guest Wren and I are continuing our playthrough of Tangled Blessings by Cassi Mothwin. Zoanna and Emmeline are just about to enter their second year at Brackroot Academy, and many surprises await. Okay, so we've got the second year, which is the Cups year. The first prompt for Zoanna is the 10 of Cups. Your favourite professor was ousted from the academy after it was revealed they had ties to an association attempting to gain control of the school. Before they were escorted away, they entrusted you with a small sealed chest. Who was the professor? What did they teach? How did you get the chest open? And what did you find inside? A lot of very, very interesting questions.
Oh my God.
And then your Major Arcana card is the Moon. My first prompt is the Queen of Cups. Brackroot Academy is filled with secret passages and rooms, and this was the year you found your way in. One of the most notable rooms you discovered was a tomb of forgotten artifacts and relics. It was clear they hadn't been touched in a while, but you recognized some of them as items from cautionary tales where arcane users were driven from their senses, turned to dust, empowered by demonic forces, or overwhelmed with the need for more power. What did you do about this discovery? Were you tempted to take any items? Very interesting. And then I got the Fool as my card. Please do let me know about Zoanna's year 2 whenever you're ready.
I think Zoanna thinks that this is propaganda. But Professor Sagrada, I think, has been one of the nicest professors that she's had. Like, in her time, it's only been a year, but in her time there, a lot of the other professors, not even mentioning Professor Keen, but a lot of them tend to be a bit more strict about teachings, and sometimes that's important. But I think Sagrada, who was the simple enchantments teacher, and maybe part of that was because they were the enchantment teacher, and so people just liked them from the get out. But I think when she receives this chest, she doesn't know what to do with it. She hides it, trying to see if she can find any more information about why he was actually removed from the school. There's very little. But in order to get the chest open, there's a riddle written into the workings of the lock, and there's no exact keyhole. You have to charm the lock into getting it to open for you. And it takes her a minute to figure it out, but as is her nature, she manages to get through this enchantment, and on the inside is what looks like a small scroll, but it almost looks like the scroll itself is made of crystal. And so trying to unravel it, it cracks and creaks a bit, and she's worried she's going to shatter this crystal scroll. But when she looks into it, she's expecting a reflection of herself with how mirrored the outside seemed. But within it is not a reflection, but what looks like a swirling moat of like a sea of stars. And it reminds her of the same kind of swirls that surrounded the possibilities when the speaking gem was drawing her to come here in the first place. And I think she recognizes that if she speaks a possibility into this scroll, it might become true.
Ooh, amazing. I think that Emmeline, I think, probably tries to suck up to the higher echelons of Academy staff. So it's in her interest to believe the propaganda or, from her perspective, facts of the case. And probably noticed that Zoanna was one of this professor's closest students, and so has some level of suspicion, but doesn't give it too much thought. And I think is unaware of this chest. I feel like Zoanna would not have made this public knowledge, voluntarily at least. I think it's more of a passing curiosity to Emmeline than something that is a major event. And then for Emmeline finding the secret passages, I think Willow the cat was instrumental in finding the entrance. And discovering these magical items from cautionary tales, I think that, as previously mentioned, Emmeline is trying to be kind of a teacher's pet to the headmaster and the more prominent staff in the academy. So I think does report this, but she is tempted to take at least one item. I think the item that she takes is one that is not immediately identifiable, and the fact that it's mysterious and the fact that she can't work out what it's for immediately is the reason that she's drawn to it. I think it's a ring, so it's nice and easy to hide. I think it was in a little velvet box, and she opens it up and sees that it's got a sapphire gem in it. So she closes it, puts it into her pocket, and then goes to report this finding to the rest of the school without mentioning the ring that she now has possession of. Okay, so what does Zoanna think about all this?
I think Zoanna hears that Emmeline is like very into like grave robbing. First, just like by the time it gets to her, like it's gone through a couple cycles. She hears that you're very into grave robbing and it's a thing that you do often, and your cat has escalated from just like taking little trinkets to like taking bones, all these kinds of things. I don't think she was directly involved, but I think when it came out that you had found this cache of treasures, it kind of actually inspired a bit of like wonder and mystery about the things, because this school is, she would assume, always filled with people. How could something like this be forgotten? How many more secrets like this does it have? I don't think that she remembers it terribly, but she is a bit weary about you like grave robbing.
This is one of the few times that I'm not playing a necromancer, so this is very funny for me because I always play like necromancers and vampires, and like this time, no, I'm innocent. It's fine.
Yeah, you're like secretly collecting bones to like make like a golem to like take over the school.
Exactly. Fantastic. Okay, our second prompt for year 2. You've got the 7 of Cups. You tried your first solo ritual your second year. After 12 hours of chanting by candlelight without stopping, the ritual worked. Which of these did you perform and what happened as a result? Revealed hidden knowledge, transformed an object, bound an object to a place, summoned a devil, or spoke with the dead? And your major arcana card is number 11, Justice. And then my card is the 4 of Cups. While writing notes for a spell, your pen exploded, leaving a large ink puddle across the page. A dark hand with a long arm emerged from it, grabbed your arm, and made you write a new spell with incantations you'd never seen. You quickly realized it had a high chance of imprisoning someone in stone or bestowing endless good fortune. Did you cast the spell? If so, what happened? If you didn't cast the spell, what did you do with your notes? And then my major arcana card is the High Priestess. What was the ritual that Zoanna performed?
Zoanna was initially looking into attempting to, she hasn't forgotten about your familiar, and she really wanted one. And so she was looking into summoning rituals. And so I think that after the 12 hours of chanting, it worked. And the thing that manifests in the drawn circle in front of her is not a small furry creature or anything. There is some fur, but it is not small. And there are wings. And this imp devil creature standing at about 3-4 foot high squats down and makes eye contact with her. And there is, I think, this iridescence to them, this bluish gray, and it whispers something to her just enough that she can hear before vanishing again.
Incredible. Do you think that this would have taken place entirely in private, so it would be unlikely that anyone would have known that this was happening?
She probably did it in the tower, in her rooms, but I think people knew that she was doing something. And, people don't have full information. They fill in the rest of the blanks.
Yeah. I think this, in that case, does filter down to Emmeline. She does hear the most heightened, Zoanna summoned a devil that was 9 feet tall and destroyed the tower, and it was only through the most efficient magics that it was repaired so that no one would know it had ever happened, that kind of stuff. I think she's skeptical but suspects that there's a kernel of truth in there, and perhaps goes back to her old conspiracy board ways and tries to figure out what evidence is more concrete and what is just hearsay, and probably doesn't get very far with it. I think everyone is embellishing this story to high heaven. I think there's probably a notebook somewhere hidden in her rooms that has what is Zoanna really up to in it.
Oh god, amazing.
For Emmeline, when this arm reaches out of the spilled ink and forces her to write a new spell with incantations she's never seen, the prompt says it has a high chance of imprisoning someone in stone or bestowing an endless good fortune. So I think that despite the fact that Emmeline has been very keen to learn more and gain more power and feel more in control, I think this is an instance where she doesn't feel in control. Even though there is the chance of something beneficial happening, the risk is too great. She can't take that chance. But the fact that this happened is fascinating. So she does keep her notes, and I think stores it in the same locked drawer that she keeps her kind of Zoanna conspiracy notebook, and could potentially use it at a later date or plant it on someone to implicate them in something at a later date. Those are kind of fleeting possibilities that have crossed her mind, but probably ones that she doesn't want to acknowledge that she's actually considered. So yeah, do you think that Zoanna has heard about this?
She hears about the arm, and I think she's involved because that was one of the things that her devil whispered to her that she could do. She could reach across distances. Whether or not she actually knew what you were writing at the other end, not clear. And I think to her, it kind of feels like a dream the moment that happened, but she was involved.
Incredible. That's all the time we have for this episode of A Game of One's Own, but next week the story will continue with Year 3 of Tangled Blessings. If you want to try Tangled Blessings for yourself, there's a link in the podcast description. You can also find out more about all the other brilliant games by Cassi Mothwin by following the links in the description. Thanks so much to this week's amazing guest, Wren. You can find links to their social media in the description as well. Thank you for listening to this episode of A Game of One's Own. Our theme music, as always, is by James Barbarossa, with additional music by Kevin MacLeod. If you'd like to support the show, head over to patreon.com/snazzytapier for all the bonus goodies. You can find the show on social media at A Game of One's Own, and find out more about my work at snazzytapier.com or at Maddy is Abstract on social media. See you next time for more weird stories.